For decades, the night sky inspired wonder and unity, a vast expanse that seemed to belong to all of humanity. It was a place where imagination soared, and the boundaries between nations faded beneath the stars. This spirit of cooperation was symbolized by international collaboration aboard the International Space Station, where astronauts from rival countries worked side by side, sharing knowledge and hope for a peaceful future. But that era is ending, giving way to a new reality shaped by competition and suspicion. Today, on October 2, 2025, space is officially recognized as a contested warfighting domain, where military strategists and governments prepare for conflict beyond Earth's atmosphere. This dramatic shift began in 2007, when China destroyed one of its own satellites with a missile, shattering the illusion of space as a sanctuary and sending a clear message to the world. The resulting cloud of debris still threatens satellites today, a constant reminder that the peaceful use of space can be disrupted in an instant, marking the start of a new, competitive age. Military leaders now speak of space not as a support arena, but as a potential battlefield where the balance of power can shift rapidly. General B. Chance Saltzman, Chief of Space Operations for the U.S. Space Force, and his counterparts around the globe, no longer see space as benign or neutral. Instead, they view it as a domain where threats can emerge without warning. The consensus is clear: any major future conflict on Earth will likely begin or extend into space, with satellites and space assets as the first targets. The cosmos is now mapped with strategic coordinates, potential battle lines, and zones of influence, as nations race to secure their interests above the planet. Our modern life, GPS, communications, global finance, weather forecasting, relies absolutely on satellites, making them both essential and vulnerable. Recognizing space as a battlefield means this infrastructure is now a target, and its security is a matter of national and global concern. The orbits we once took for granted are now crowded with both scientific instruments and potential threats, as commercial, military, and civilian satellites jostle for position. The final frontier has become the front line of 21st century geopolitics, where nations compete for dominance and security. The implications are monumental. The security of our way of life, from navigation to communication and commerce, now depends on what happens above our heads. Space is no longer just for exploration. It's a domain of competition, conflict, and high-stakes strategy, shaping the future of our world. The U.S. Space Force's July 2025 exercise, Resolute Space, marked a new era of practical preparation for space conflict. For the first time, the realities of space warfare were brought out of theory and into a coordinated, multinational rehearsal. Over 700 personnel and key allies participated, making it the largest such event since the Cold War. Representatives from allied nations worked side by side, sharing expertise and strategies in a high-stakes environment. The drills tested doctrines of orbital warfare, including satellite combat maneuvers designed to outpace and outthink potential adversaries in the unforgiving environment of space, and electromagnetic attacks like jamming and lasers. Space domain awareness was pushed to new limits as teams responded to simulated threats in real time. Navigational warfare was central, focusing on tracking every object in orbit and protecting GPS signals. The ability to defend and recover these vital systems was rigorously tested. General Saltzman declared the exercise a clear message. The U.S. and its allies are ready to defend their interests in space, no matter the challenge or adversary. This shift moves from passive use to active combat readiness, signaling a new mindset for military planners and operators alike. The very existence of these wargames changes the strategic calculus for every nation with assets in orbit, forcing them to reconsider their own vulnerabilities and responses. Orbital conflict is now normalized as a core part of modern defense strategy, with nations investing more in both technology and training. The silent expanse above is now an arena for strategic posturing and rehearsed warfare, forever altering the future of security on and above our planet. The contest for space is intensifying, driving a global arms race that is reshaping the future of warfare and international security. Nations are investing billions in military space capabilities, racing to secure their interests far above the Earth's surface. In 2024, global space defense spending soared to $73.1 billion, a record high that signals just how critical space has become to national defense strategies. The United States alone accounted for $53.1 billion, maintaining a commanding lead in the militarization of space. But China, Russia, and France are also ramping up investments, fueling a high-stakes race for orbital dominance. The focus is on kinetic anti-satellite missiles, dual-use satellites, powerful jammers, directed energy lasers, and sophisticated cyber attacks, each designed to give their operators a decisive edge. These advanced technologies are built to control, disrupt, or even destroy enemy satellites, threatening the security of vital space assets. The rapid proliferation of space weaponry is creating a fragile and unstable environment, where a single misstep could have global consequences. Deterrence in space is more precarious than on Earth, with few binding treaties and ever-present risks of miscalculation or escalation. The cycle of militarization is self-perpetuating, as each nation's buildup only fuels its rivals' anxieties and ambitions. The heavens are now crowded with suspicion, uncertainty, and the ever-present potential for conflict. The arms race in space is no longer theoretical. It's a daily reality, unfolding above our heads. The stakes, control of the ultimate high ground, and the future of global security itself. Since China's 2007 anti-satellite test, both China and Russia have aggressively pursued space weaponization. They see U.S. reliance on satellites as a vulnerability and are developing weapons to exploit it. China's program is sophisticated, integrating co-orbital satellites, jammers, and directed energy weapons. Russia, with fewer resources, still develops anti-satellite missiles and aggressive inspector satellites. Both nations emphasize electronic and cyber warfare to disrupt or disable U.S. space assets. China's ambitions also include controlling information, seeing satellite internet as a threat to its censorship. The battle for space is not just military, it's ideological, blending control of information with national security. The era of uncontested American superiority in orbit is over. Space is now a multipolar, precarious environment. In response to growing threats, the U.S. created Space Command in 2019 and the Space Force soon after, the first new military branch in over 70 years. The Space Force's mission: organize, train, and equip forces to operate in and from space. This dedicated service develops specialists, guardians, focused on the unique challenges of orbital warfare. The U.S. demonstrates advanced capabilities, maneuvering satellites to inspect others and tracking objects with systems like Space Fence. The force structure is evolving, with debates over integrating part-time personnel and reserve components. Recent policy favors a single-component force, allowing flexibility without creating a separate Space National Guard. The Space Force is still defining its precise role as it adapts to secure U.S. interests in the cosmos. America's edge in space now depends on this new, specialized military branch. The Space Force is forging new doctrine, drawing on naval strategy to guide operations in the vast, featureless expanse of space. Concepts like orbital warfare and space control are being adapted from maritime analogies. Orbital warfare means not just protecting assets, but actively engaging adversaries in space. Tactics include satellite maneuvers, targeting, and weapon use in zero gravity. The goal achieves space control, freedom to operate while denying it to the enemy. The Space Force in Being concept deters aggression by maintaining a credible, ready force in orbit. Unlike the sea, space offers no hiding. Every object's path is visible and predictable. Kinetic conflict in space creates long-lasting debris, making the stakes far higher than at sea. Naval strategy is a starting point, but space warfare demands unique, purpose-built doctrine. The U.S. is racing to define how to fight and win on the celestial battlefield. New doctrines are driving the development of conceptual spacecraft, guardian angels and celestial demons. Guardian angels are defensive satellites, protecting high-value assets with sensors, jammers, and interceptors. They counter threats from co-orbital killer satellites developed by rivals. Celestial demons are offensive craft, designed for surveillance, reconnaissance, and, if needed, disabling enemy satellites. These concepts embody the shift from passive defense to active deterrence and response. The U.S. is building a resilient, layered architecture, hardening satellites and developing both defensive and offensive systems. While details remain classified, the direction is clear. Readiness for conflict in orbit. The final frontier is now a domain of active defense and strategic maneuver. The space arms race is driven by a stark reality. Access to space is vital for national security, economic prosperity, and daily life. Satellites form the backbone of military power and global commerce. Losing superiority in space is a major geopolitical risk. Militaries rely on satellites for surveillance, communications, and precision targeting. GPS and its counterparts are essential for navigation, finance, and logistics. Disruption of these services would cripple military operations and trigger global economic chaos. Securing orbital assets is a matter of national and economic survival. For the U.S., losing its edge in space would level the playing field for adversaries. Dominance in space is essential, not for aggression, but to deter conflict and ensure global stability. As 2025 ends, space is more militarized, congested, and contested than ever. Major powers are locked in a technological arms race, deploying new satellites and countermeasures. The risk of miscalculation is dangerously high. As commercial activity expands to the moon and beyond, new roles for space-based constabulary forces, like a cosmic coast guard, will emerge. The weaponization of space threatens global security. A conflict in orbit could create debris fields that cripple satellite infrastructure for generations. The Kessler syndrome could trap humanity on Earth, severing the links that underpin modern life. The challenge balanced national defense with preserving space as a sustainable environment. The stars now reflect both our ambitions and anxieties. Our choices will determine if space becomes a battlefield or remains a beacon for humanity's future.